Hi everybody and welcome back to Dublin Tech Talks. We have John McElligott today, who is COO of Cara Connect, recently raised Series A of about 6 mil, focusing on health wellbeing industry, giving it a platform which connects employees with tailored access to coaches, counsellors and therapists. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
I probably butchered what Cara Connect actually do, but do you want to give us a bit of background about who are Cara Connect, how you got involved, and kind of we'll go from there?
Sure. So Cara Connect was actually founded in Iceland a number of years ago, and it started life as, I'm sure your listeners would be familiar with the likes of Glowfox or Forest, like a platform like that. So Cara Connect was originally set up as being a platform for mental health clinics and therapists, and that proceeded for a while, but the market for that is pretty small.
Yeah.
So last year we did a pivot into providing, as you said, not bad at all, coaching, counselling and therapy for companies. And that was transformational. So that's what we're doing now. So on the back of that, we raised our Series A. I've been involved for a few years, but as a board member. But after we did our Series A, then I came on board full time. And we've, as I said, the company was started in Iceland, but we've now opened an office here. We're hiring people. We've got almost 10 people here. And we're going after that market of offering our service to companies.
So it's a platform where you log in and there's counsellors or whoever on the other side, or how fundamentally does the product work?
Yeah, more or less as you describe. I mean, what we do is we say to companies or organizations that are our clients, we usually start with a survey of what are people looking for, and you'd be surprised they're very different depending on the organization, the type of employees, whether they're remote or in person, and then we populate a specific bespoke marketplace or platform for each organization based on what the requirements are. So, it's totally confidential. So if you were working for a company that was using Cara Connect, you'd probably access it via your intranet, and you would only log in when you're actually making a booking. And usually how we contract is that a company would say that they offer their employees a certain number of sessions, like 4, 6 or 8 per year. And we would just make that happen, behind the scenes, look after all the sourcing, look after the relationships with the therapist, look after all the billing, and it's all confidential in terms of reporting. So, all the HR or the company would receive is the amount of usage, and what services were being used.
So it's founded by Thorborg.
Yeah, so John McElligott is a tricky name. So the founder is, we call her Tubba. Yeah. But Thorbjorg Vigfusdottir would be the
I won't try that one.
The full, yeah.
So I've met her. She's very engaging and super easy to talk to, and really passionate about her project. And her products and what she's done. How did you get involved there? What was the...
So I actually know Tubba for over 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, we met at business school. And she has a background in psychology. And actually, I think we just sort of reconnected. She was here at a SaaS Doc or one of those conferences a few years ago. And we just reconnected, and I started getting involved and doing a little bit of advisory. And then, one thing led to another. I joined the board and started working more closely. So, but I mean, maybe the next question is why, I've joined full time and really committing to it is it's just purely because of the timing and the opportunity. When we did that pivot and we were able to raise and we started going out looking for customers, we just found an incredible reaction that the market was just so ready for the service we're offering. I think, obviously the pandemic was difficult for a lot of people, and I think it's only gotten worse afterwards. We a number of our clients are remote first or remote only, and that seemed to be a great idea at a certain point in time. But now what we're hearing and what we're seeing is that just people are struggling by not having as much professional human interaction as they used to have before, and companies are struggling to know how people are doing. So they just don't know is Gavin doing well, or does Gavin have issues that he's dealing with? And
Lots of issues.
could those we can talk about that afterwards, Gavin. Are those things that could impact work performance? So we're very much in the preventative space, by the way. So when we look at people kind of on a scale from green to red, and red is where you're either your work is affected or you're in a clinical kind of place, whereas yellow is there's something bothering you. It's not impacting your work. You're not really talking mental health yet, but you're at risk of drifting to the right, and you're at risk of it, whatever is going on, having an impact on your work and your performance. So we're very much in that space, in the preventative, to just from a company's perspective to help employees be as engaged as possible, make sure you don't have any regretted attrition, you have minimal absenteeism, that sort of thing. And from an employee perspective, just the way we phrase it is we say help people get access to the support that they need and that they would benefit from.
It's amazing that the area of well-being has just kind of, from nearly a dirty word 4 or 5 years ago, into a mainstream industry now. Obviously, WorkHuman as sponsors the podcast, but their business have thrived in the last 5 years, and it's not pandemic reasoning. It's just, I think, people becoming they love this, more human in how they go about their work. Is it just that environment that you're seeing with organizations that the employee well-being is now number one, or is it just an evolution of people policy coming true?
Gosh, it's quite a big question, but I think what's undeniable, you and I would kind of know how much Ireland has changed, the world has changed. One thing I think that's been very positive over the last few years is people are willing to talk about things a lot more, rather than being swept under the carpet. So I don't know if 20, 30 years ago, if people had the same level of issues as they have today, but I think today people are much more willing to talk about them and maybe to reach out for support. So that's certainly a positive, and that gives rise partly to what we're doing. I think also there is a generational aspect where I think younger workers in particular are looking to their employers to provide support, whereas perhaps in the past it wasn't the case. People just didn't expect that their employers would be helping. Whereas I think today it is a factor. And if you look at any of these surveys about what causes you to move or what causes you to change jobs, salary or remuneration is always a factor. But I think, whether you're being looked after and whether you're feeling comfortable in your work, whether you're feeling appreciated, all of that thing, you could call it the well-being side, is a huge factor.
Massive.
An absolutely huge factor. And for certain demographics and in certain careers, it's the number one factor.
Yeah, 100%. And especially when there's a surplus of jobs and people go, I don't need to be sitting in an environment like this. It's it's toxic. You hear that a lot. Or leadership has changed and I'm not going on that journey again. And that's fundamental. Like your people, I've recruited nearly 15 years and I still find it funny that organizations don't listen to those fundamentals. People leave for a reason. They're not leaving just for money. Having a platform like that is truly important. So you're in Ireland 6 months, 12 months?
Officially? We started, I think we announced probably around the 1st of October.
Yeah.
So we're now, we've got a team of around 10 here. We had 2 new joiners who started just yesterday, the 1st of February. So we're properly up and running.
And how are you finding scale in Ireland? Because you've obviously worked in a number of years, but from kind of startup world is where you are at the moment.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I just happened to be here, but we did look at other locations to locate ourselves. And, one of the great things here is that there is, it's a tight labour market. It's a tight labour market everywhere, but there is availability of really good talent, So the market is at a scale where, there's lots and lots of people you can talk to. There's lots of companies you can hire from. If you're looking for a very specific experience, there's places you can go. Perhaps we don't want to tempt fate here, but we found it maybe a bit easier to recruit than I was expecting. And I think one of the reasons is because we are mission driven.
Yeah.
So, we are doing something that is really about making the world a better place. And I think that does resonate. And we had quite a lot of people who, they're interested in the job, but then they actually want to talk about what we're doing and how we're helping people, and that they're inspired by the mission. And I think, people aren't going to join just for the mission only.
Yeah.
The job has to be right as well. Though I think that combination has been quite powerful.
And I think back to the, why people want to work with a company, it's that sell as an employee value proposition is really like, you're going to empower people's better life really in a workplace. It's not there's lots of fintechs and there's lots of, other types of industries in Ireland, that kind of wellbeing space, people really do want to engage in it. And how are you finding the ecosystem itself within the startup world? Is it, because you've come from, say, bigger companies into it, it's a different world.
Yeah, it is. It is a different world. Yeah. I think very, very favourable, really. I think my big observation from, say, the last time I delved into the startup world, maybe around 10 years ago or so, is that there's just way more of it now, right? There's just far more companies. I think there's far more confidence. There's obviously far more funding. And I think, there's people who've been around, if you don't mind the expression, around the block a few times, that, know what good looks like. And I suppose the thing that I've observed is a lot of people have said to us that it looks like your timing is good. In an ecosystem of lots of startups, lots of smart people, are you going to differentiate on your tech? Are you going to differentiate on your service? What are you differentiating on? I think if you do get the timing right, that can be a very big factor. So that looks to be good. That looks to be favourable, and a number of people have observed that. But in terms of the startup ecosystem more generally, there now that everyone's meeting again, of course, there's quite a lot of get-togethers, quite a lot of events, and there's when we're dealing with the necessaries like the lawyers and accountants, there are plenty of people who are used to dealing with startups, and they don't say, "Oh, I'm unfamiliar with this" or whatnot.
I think our acceptance of failure in Ireland actually within technology has come on in the last 10, 15 years. You speak to a lot more people that have been involved in startups and they've failed, or I hate that word failed, but they haven't worked. Yeah. Or they've gone into an organization and 12 months later want to get out. I don't think there is that stigma of, well, what were you doing that for? Why didn't you get a real job?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's
that's allowed the ecosystem to really flourish, and I think that's why there's a lot more. Like Dogpatch is full. Yeah. Where's the business based?
We're currently in Dogpatch.
Oh, you're in Dogpatch as well. Yeah. So it's you see how busy it is, and Sandra, who was here just on the podcast as well before, was saying the ecosystem is brilliant for that collaboration space.
And I think you can see there's plenty of second-time entrepreneurs as well. So I would totally agree with you. The ecosystem has come on a lot.
Brilliant. So the funding, what's that going to allow the business to do? What's the? You don't have to tell me the whole plan, but what's that going to allow the business to do next?
Sure. So we raised, I guess you'd call it a proper Series A, right? About $6 million or thereabouts. So that is a combination of two things. So it's continuing to invest in our tech, because we've our tech platform and the performance of that, and also to build out our sales and marketing. Yeah. So that's what we're doing at the moment. And we're expecting that fundraising will enable us to grow and scale for a period of about 2 years. And then we'll look to go back to the market and go again and look to scale further on the basis of further fundraising.
And did you find, because of the product and the space, a little easier to raise funds? It was a difficult time to get there.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I may not be the best qualified to describe that, because data point of one, so did I find it easier than what? I think probably the point that we've been discussing, just the fact that this is quite top of mind, that was definitely helpful. Yeah. Right. That was definitely helpful in terms of getting an audience. And then obviously getting people over the line is based on conviction and the business plan.
No, because speaking to a lot of VCs, they're saying the money is there. The tap hasn't been turned off, say, but people are looking for more of an engaging product to invest in. And something that has actually real tangible value. And like Inclusio is another product or another business that got actually quite similar funding. I think it's nearly the same number, which is great to see.
Yeah, I mean, look, the market for funding in January, February 2023 is a bit different from how it was a year ago or 2 years ago. I think we all know that. I think in the startup scene, people are talking about it as more of a pause. And more of a step back, and it maybe had gone a little bit far as well. So it's just a bit of a step back. The cash is there. There's plenty of dry powder, or whatever you want to call it. There will be probably less funding this year than there was in. I'm not sure how the numbers are coming out for 2022, but there'll be less funding this year than there was in 2021. I'm guessing. Yeah. Though. I think in the industry, we're thinking in future years, 24, 25, barring some other major shock, that the market should begin to recover and normalize.
Perfect. You mentioned sales marketing. What is the go-to-market strategy? How do you grow a well-being product? Is it similar to most SaaS businesses, or is there a more strategic kind of way about that?
Yeah, we probably don't really consider ourselves to be a SaaS business. There's a SaaS aspect to it, but we are truly selling a service. So, I mean, currently we're operating a very much a traditional sales and marketing funnel, if you like. And I think one of the things we've learned is really not to sell, is to listen, because every organization is different. And when you are speaking to the right person in HR or in wellness or the CEO, depending on the scale of the organization, and they start telling you what's going on, and then we talk about how we can help them with that situation. But every company has something going on. I spoke to an organization this week that are clearly really, really advanced in terms of their wellness. And he was literally saying, our employees are saying, what have you done for me lately? We've gotten to the stage where we need to bring in something new. So, okay, that's an issue to solve. I talked to another organization who are talking about retention. That's their hottest button is retention, because there's salaries are going up across the board. As we know, they can't afford to pay higher salaries. So they're just very concerned about retention. I spoke to somebody else who there's been workplace incidents, right? Maybe not that many, but they've had an impact on staff. And so staff need to feel that their employer has got a duty of care and is taking that duty of care seriously. So it really, I think as far as possible, we're trying to address the needs that organizations and companies have. And, when we get into these conversations, it feels like we are in a very good place to help that.
And do you have an atypical buyer? Is it an enterprise business, or is it a kind of, doesn't matter?
Not yet. Not yet. We're seeing interest from large, from small, from what we used to call blue collar to what we used to call white collar. We're seeing interest from local branches of international firms to headquartered here. I'm sure if we were having this conversation in a couple of years' time, we'd be talking about niches and we'd be talking about areas where we were successful. But thus far, no, we're literally seeing interest in lots of different areas. I think if I was to characterize, it would be areas that are taking staff wellness seriously. Companies that are taking staff wellness seriously.
Most are.
Well, those that are, perhaps a better expression is those that are prioritizing it, and that are willing to do something about it. That's probably the biggest distinction. Yeah.
And before I let you go, it's a different type of business. How has it felt growing a wellness business or a kind of well-being business compared to some of the kind of other organizations that you've been,
My background is primarily e-commerce and, downstream and B2C and obviously very different from that, right? Very much people business. And it can be a cliche, but very much a people business. And one thing I would like to highlight is that we've talked a lot about sales and what have you, but probably one of the things that we take most seriously is recruiting of the professionals. So counsellors, dietitians, coaches, psychologists, and the likes. And
of course, sorry, there's the whole back end side of it,
and developing and deepening our relationships with that community is, I mean, it's the key to it, actually. It's because what we are committed to is having very high quality professionals and high quality providers. And so to do that, we need to have very good relationships with them. They need to trust us. So it is very much a people business.
Well, yeah. Sorry, just as I forgot about the back end, the actual suppliers of the service. Yeah, because that would be nearly as important, more important than the software that you're selling, because your customer needs to have the right experience to want to keep using it.
Absolutely, I would say that is the secret sauce is having the right relationship with them, and I think we've gotten off to a good start with that. With Tubba has a background in psychology herself. We, like I said at the outset, we spent a few years actually building a platform for that community, so we're known amongst the community, and we probably know more about them than our competitors would, just because of that history. So but we continue to deepen that because it's the most important thing.
So many customers. John, thanks a million for your time.
Actually, if I could just share one point, it's just that I wanted to share a statistic I learned recently about the Irish workforce, that apparently 35% of Irish workers say that they are stressed most or all of the time.
Wow. Okay.
And that is up from like low 20s pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
So in 3-4 years, it's gone up significantly. But only 7% say that they're utilizing supports that their employer has in place. So there's a huge gap between what people who are stressed and anxious, and therefore would benefit from support, and those who are using supports that are in place. So that's
and for remote businesses who would be pretty common at the moment, say 50% of the workforce. If you look at say tech as be 80%, it's very difficult to identify, isn't it?
Oh, extremely. Yeah, extremely. And that's why we focus our solution on being employee-led.
Yeah.
So we obviously sell to the company, but then employees have the ability to choose what they want.
And what's the engagement level on the platform once it's introduced? Sorry.
Yeah, so between 20 and 30%.
Okay.
Per annum, as in 20 to 30% would engage with a psychologist or a coach. Or the likes during the course of the year, but it can vary quite considerably.
Yeah.
So, say we've competitors who may have worked with some tech firms that might have had some large layoffs recently, and we've heard numbers up to 60%.
Wow. Okay.
Because when you do a round of layoffs or a reduction in force, there's looking after those who've left. But then there's a huge job in looking after those who remain.
Yeah.
And ensuring that they're not. They're not in fear that they're next. That the whole story that's going around at the moment, that particularly tech firms, people have felt that they're part of the family.
Yeah.
Right, and that trust has been broken a little bit.
Yeah, and that's very difficult to get back. Yeah. That's probably the biggest thing you see with redundancies. It's the people that were left behind. Some of them are quite bitter actually when you talk to them, because they had such a good culture and that, but they might have been there a while and they're going, I thought I'd get it. And then their productivity drops, and they're not going to be made redundant if your productivity drops. That's a whole different conversation. Really interesting conversation. Brilliant product, by the way. I hope it goes well and continues going on. John, COO of Cara Connect, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to John there, COO of Cara Connect. Very interesting platform, and something that organisations have really focused on over the last while. That well-being and making sure there's a platform there for your employees to engage with the right help and really understand how to help them if they are looking for it. But also the side point, which I hadn't really thought about, was the area of making sure that the the people giving the advice, the counsellors, whatever, are top class, and having those two types of customers to look after in one platform, it's a really interesting area. If that is of interest to you, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. It's Dublin Tech Talks, and we hope to talk to you soon. Thank you.